On Monday, 14-time champion Rafael Nadal's return to the French Open ended on a disappointing note. In a match which lasted 3 hours and 5 minutes, Nadal was knocked out in the first round by Alexander Zverev. Now, everyone is wondering whether this is the last we've seen of Rafa at his favorite tournament. On the 115 occasions that Nadal had previously stepped out to compete at Roland Garros, he had lost just 3 times in his entire career. Nadal, who's a 22-time Grand Slam champion, is struggling with injuries, but he hasn't ruled out coming back for Roland Garros next year. He was non-committal, though, on the upcoming Paris Olympics, which will be played exactly here, and even the next Grand Slam, Wimbledon.
Joining me now to talk more about possibly Rafael Nadal's last match at Roland Garros is former India tennis player Purav Raja. Purav, I was watching when you guys were talking about possibly Rafa's last match, but he hasn't quite said so. He's actually, even in the press conference, seemed like he left a window open for him to come back. In fact, he suggested he might want to go on for a little while, provided everything works out. But you seemed very convinced this is the last we've seen of him at Roland Garros. Why do you say that?
Firstly, Shivani, thanks for having me. I honestly think it was one of those things that it cannot not be his last time. It has to be his last time because given that he's getting farewells in Madrid, he got a farewell in Rome, the way that he's come about, the tennis that he's playing, he himself being the athlete that he is, winning it so many times, I don't see how he can play again. I don't see how. I think it was more of a hope rather than a real, it was more of a hope rather than a real thought that he's going to play again. I think he didn't want to say goodbye. We didn't see the perfect goodbye from Roger. We never saw the perfect goodbye from Andy Murray. Well, we saw the goodbye once, but he came back. And then now with Rafa, I don't think they're quite ready to, call. When you won it 14 times, it's very tough on your 15th time to say, okay, now this is it, And that's why I think that, but in his heart, I'm sure he knows that even if he won't be back. He won't be back in the same, especially at Roland Garros. I expect him to play, and I expect him to play Paris Olympics as his last tournament, but that's just my expectation.
Well, he's already kind of ruled out Wimbledon this year, especially because there is the Paris Olympics on clay, and then the transition is going to be a little bit difficult for him. I'm not sure how much of him we see later in this year, but certainly there are many of us who are hoping that he can recover as he has. I mean, I do remember throughout his career, he's been written off physically a number of times, and then he's come back and won plenty of Grand Slams.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And he has been written off plenty of times. But the only difference is that the body is looking that much slower, that much more different than I've ever seen it before. Every time he came back, he looked more powerful. He looked stronger. The biceps looked bigger. He looked more comfortable. The serve looked like it had more oomph on it. It just looked like a different Rafael Nadal. Yesterday, it looked like somebody who was in pain. He was drop shotting. He was hitting balls. He wanted points to finish fast. He was struggling on the run on the forehand. It's just stuff that you never can imagine with Rafa, and that's why, I mean, if you see his tournament schedule, I mean, he's played such few matches. It's so tough to imagine that he's going to come back and be strong. And tennis is a tough game. It's a few percentages here and there, and it makes a huge difference to your game. And I think it's finally time to say goodbye.
Okay, I don't know why you are rushing him. I want him to take all the time that he wants to take.
I'm happy. I just, sometimes I feel bad just watching him at this stage, watching a champion like that who's won it so many times, who used to, make a living out of beating guys like Alexander Zverev. And, he made, I don't think he's not lost to many people on clay in general, but nobody at Roland Garros, barring Djokovic. And just the way that it's just crazy to think that the level has dropped so much. And for him to come back now is just almost impossible.
Well, we obviously have seen Roger Federer's retirement. We are possibly very close to the official end of Rafa's career as well. Let me ask you, at least as far as Roland Garros is concerned, if you are convinced that this would be his last match, how do you think he's going to be remembered?
He'll be remembered as the single greatest athlete of all time in any sport. For me, he's the single greatest athlete of all time in any sport. In terms of just physical athleticism, obviously we talk about him being the king of clay. We talk about him being, these records being unmatched. But just in pure athleticism, and the whole locker room in tennis remembers him as the greatest athlete of all time. I mean, a terrific person and a terrific, role model for everyone. Almost Mr. Perfect. I think Federer and Nadal made this perfect era of tennis. And, I feel like we've lost a great athlete.
Yes, absolutely. Well, on that note, we are in agreement. I think just the temperament that Rafa Nadal has brought to the sport, and just the sheer physicality with which he's changed the game and continued to play such, a glorious 20 years. I think that is singularly remarkable as far as international sport is concerned, particularly for a very tough individual sport like tennis. Purav, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you,
Maybe I'll
Shivan.
speak to you again when Rafa comes back to Roland Garros next year.
Thank you. It will be a pleasure to be back. Thanks so much for having me, Shivan.
Let's talk about the remarkable career of tennis legend Rafael Nadal. From his numerous triumphs to the hurdles he has overcome, his journey has captivated fans around the world. Nadal, often referred to as the King of Clay, has left an indelible mark already on the world of tennis. The first to get to 22 Grand Slam titles, Nadal's unrivaled success on the clay courts of Roland Garros stands out as his most remarkable achievement. The Spaniard has claimed a staggering 14 French Open titles in 16 years since 2005, cementing his dominance on the surface. But Nadal did not become Nadal, one of the greatest across sports, just because of his clay dominance. He was also the youngest in the Open era to complete a career slam and the first man to win majors on 3 different surfaces in the same year, called the Surface Slam. He has secured 4 US Open titles, 2 Wimbledons and 2 Australian Open titles, showcasing his versatility and skill on different surfaces. His relentless determination and mental fortitude have been the cornerstones of his success. He also holds the record for most consecutive weeks in the top 10 of the ATP rankings, having never left the top 10 from April 2005 to March 2023, a total of 912 weeks. Nadal is also one of the only 2 men to complete a career Golden Slam in singles, that is winning all Grand Slams and an Olympic singles gold. Over 20 years, Nadal has astonished fans and experts alike with his doggedness to throw balls back into the opponent's court. His lefty, heavy top spin and a cracker of a forehand that can extract acutest of angles have been the bane of his opponents. The onset of Nadal's pro career in 2004 was also the start of a truly great rivalry with now retired Roger Federer. Much of both Rafa and Roger's careers are exalted into the realm of greatness because of this shared rivalry that was also marked with extreme respect for each other. In March 2004, a 17-year-old Rafa took on Federer, who was already a Wimbledon champion by that time, in the 3rd round of Miami Open. Ranked 34 at the time, he announced himself on the stage and the onset of this engrossing rivalry by beating the then world number 1 in straight sets. Federer and Nadal went on to play each other 40 times overall, with Nadal leading 24-16, including 14-10 in finals. This includes playing French Open and Wimbledon finals for 3 consecutive years between 2006 and 2008. Culminating in what many consider the greatest match in tennis history, the final of Wimbledon 2008, which Rafa won for his first title on the hallowed grounds of SW19. The Spaniard's rivalry with Novak Djokovic has also been equally grueling, though not as thrilling for Rafa. Nadal started as the more dominating of the two, but after Djokovic's remarkable turnaround in 2011, the tables were turned. Nadal has continued to beat Djokovic, but only on clay. His last non-clay victory against Djokovic came in the 2013 US Open final. Although if you look at the statistics, Nadal is only 1 behind the Serb head-to-head. The two have faced each other over 59 times, including in all major finals, with Djokovic leading only 30-29. The reason all of Nadal's triumphs have an aura of greatness is because of the toll his brand of tennis takes on his body. The fact that Nadal has achieved a near 20-year-long illustrious career despite facing a fair share of injuries has elevated him to a level even his greatest rivals cannot match. These injuries have forced him to withdraw from important tournaments and matches and undergo major surgeries, and yet every time he was written off, he bounced back and shocked everyone. Nadal's resilience is truly mind-boggling. Just on the scale of the mental and physical strength he has exhibited throughout his career, Nadal must be ranked the greatest of all time, not just in tennis, but in any sport.
Add to that his monk-like work ethic and remarkable standards of public behavior, his legacy is also about being a superb role model athlete for kids. Nadal is known for his sportsmanship and humility. He exemplifies the values of fair play, displaying grace in both victory and defeat every time. His charitable efforts such as the Rafael Nadal Foundation have also made a positive impact on the lives of many. Here's wishing this truly once-in-a-lifetime talent the very best for what is remaining of his career. Let's hope we have some more matches to savor his extraordinary talent that can only add to his enduring legacy.